Hey guys, it's Chrissy Senpai again. Today's just going to be like a real-time drawing video. I wanted to talk about something that has recently impacted me. If you follow my Instagram, you will see that on Christmas Day, this is going to be a sad video, but it's going to talk about how I, deal with these things, if it would help anybody. My uncle was found passed away at his home on Christmas Day. And while, we're not going to let that ruin the holiday in the future for us, it's a very sad time for the family right now. He had been very sick for quite some time, on and off, and he hadn't been posting on Facebook and not answering anybody's calls for 2 or 3 days. And then when there was a wellness check done by my uncle's wife, an aunt-in-law, I guess. I don't know what else you would call that. They found him passed away at his house. And I just wanted to talk about, I know there's a lot of videos that talk about this, but I guess just talk about grief from the experience of someone who doesn't take it the same way most people do, I guess. A lot of people cry, especially, and have an initial gut reaction like my dad did, because again, that's his brother who passed away, which makes sense. But it's hard to voice over for this. There are times, or at least people like me, who do not handle grief the same way. I am quite numb with grief. Now I definitely feel like I'm feeling the sadness and everything, but I have trouble showing my grief and the way that it is affecting me, I guess you could say. I find, again, this is just how I deal with things. This is not probably the recommended way or anything, but I'll just talk about it a little bit. If anybody's interested, I'm going to talk about my uncle. His name was Alan. And talk about his life a little bit, and then talk about how I have been dealing with this for the past few days and how I plan to deal with this in the future. I just needed to get this off my chest. It's very hard to talk about this in real life for the fear of, I know people would understand if I had cried, but there's some weird deep down thing in me that makes me not want to show people me being vulnerable, I guess. And this is a very vulnerable state. Anyway, I'll talk about my uncle a little bit. He grew up in the same state that we live in, and he was an army tanker. He drove a tank in the army. Him and most of my dad's siblings, except his sister, were in the army, as well as my grandfather, his siblings. Pretty much his whole family was in the army at one point or another. And after leaving the army, he came back and got a degree. What do I always yawn? He got a degree in IT, like technical support stuff. And this was back in like the 80s. He's had this degree for quite some time. My uncle was almost 60 years old. And like I said, he'd been sick for a while. Anyway, and at some point in his life, he got addicted to drugs. This isn't a bash against him. I wasn't even alive when this happened. But after getting clean, he became one of the main members of Narcotics Anonymous in the state that I live in. Like one of the best known people in this area of southern West Virginia. I'll just say, I mean, y'all know where I'm from, or at least some of you do. But he was one of the most, like, he went to every visit or meeting. He helped so many people. When I posted on his Facebook to let people know what had happened, I just got comments on comments on comments of people saying he helped me get over my addiction. And that's who he was. He was a very rough, around the edges type person. He loved to argue. That was his favorite thing to do, was to argue about politics. I won't say what side he was on. He wasn't violent towards people. But I don't want to bring up politics in this video in that sense, but he loved to argue on anything politics, and it was just funny to watch sometimes. And my last memory that I had of him was when my uncle died. My other uncle died at the beginning of the year. He was like a second uncle or something. He wasn't my dad's sibling, but he was still an uncle. I'm not exactly sure how that falls on the family tree. But he died at the beginning of the year in March, and that was the last time I got to hang out with my Uncle Alan. We went to McDonald's, all ate together, talked about music, which his favorite type of stuff was metal and heavy metal, death metal. And that was the last thing we ever did together in person, just because I'd been so busy with work, having to do the remodel, and then right after our remodel of our store, immediately going into the holidays, we're back to school, and then Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I haven't seen much of my family since. And it's just upsetting. It's very sad that the last thing I will have is that. Now, it's a positive thing. We had fun, even though it was a funeral. I got to drive them around and then make fun of me for my driving abilities, as they always do. But yeah, that's who he was. He was a tanker, and somebody who loved to help people get over their addiction, which we need more of in this world. There are many people who are addicted to many things, and he helped many people get over them. Many people in this state, especially this state, is riddled with addiction. And like I said, he helped so many people. And I just wanted to, I guess, talk about that. Talk about him a little bit, let you know what he meant to me. He was probably my closest extra relative, I guess you could say. Excluding my parents and my sister. He was the uncle that I was closest to. Because I don't really talk to much of my mom's family that much, for reasons, but my dad's side I do get along with fairly well. But anyway, I guess, wanted to let you know what he was like and memorialize him, so I, can always look back on this when I'm feeling upset and hear myself talking about him, I guess. I guess now we'll talk about dealing with grief. As I said before, I don't deal with it the way most people do. I'm not very good at expressing emotion. I do not like to feel vulnerable. But I've had a very stressful week, as you had seen from my 2 videos ago. The worst week of my life got a little bit worse. I jinxed it, I guess. But I find that trying to keep myself busy in times like this is the only thing that keeps me distracted, whether it's playing games, whether it's editing videos like I'm doing now, or drawing like I'm doing now. Now, there are times that when you are grieving, I think you need to just lay down, relax, and don't do anything. I did that most of Christmas Day once, because we were told after all the gift giving, and we were going to go do something, what had happened, and that was the day. I always enjoy doing videos. I don't plan to cut anything out of this. I don't want to put any background music on this, because this is just a talking video. But I find that you do need to give yourself some space sometimes, because whether you cry or grieve openly or internally like I do, I think you need space. And I have been in our room quite a lot, even if I'm doing something like playing Super Mario Odyssey, which has helped a lot to distract me, because we just got it. I got it from James's Christmas, and lo and behold, who would have known that that's what I would have needed to keep me from, sitting around all day. I did have to call off work, but I am getting grievance pay. I would suggest you take time. I only took off 1 day of work because it was the day immediately after, and this was, nobody saw this coming. Even though he had been sick, nobody knew that he was really sick recently, and, we didn't know that he had not told anybody. And I think deep down he knew something was going to happen. I don't think he purposely ignored anybody, but for example, I'm not comparing him to a dog in a mean way, but our dog, our old Bichon named Bubby, he knew he was going to die soon. He avoided us for a few days. He would let us pet him and stuff, but he would go away in the laundry room where the floor was cold and just sit there. And I think my uncle did something similar. Maybe deep down he knew that whatever he had wrong with him this time, he was not going to make it. This man has survived multiple heart attacks, had diabetes, and he's just been so sick. Our family has, while I don't have any signs of it yet, thank God, and my dad thankfully just has high blood pressure, but it's not super high. Our family does have very bad heart problems. They've survived most of them. My grandpa has survived multiple strokes and heart attacks. But my uncle, he had recently had open heart surgery to replace a valve, and his heart had been enlarged just like my dog that I mentioned a minute ago. And he just, I guess, knew he wasn't feeling good and knew this was going to be it. And I hate to talk about it like that, but I hope he went peacefully because they found him in his bed, like he had been sleeping. I just hope that he went without much fear and in peace. And it's so hard when somebody dies, especially somebody like this who had been dead for a few days, I guess you could say, to not think about what you could have done. I always had contact with him on Facebook. I talked to him. He always liked my art. I always liked his ranting posts because we have the same political views. I'll just say we're on the left side of the political spectrum, but he was much more intense. We talked to each other, meaned on each other, and I noticed that he hadn't been posting recently. He hadn't been popping up in my timeline. He always posted every single day. Even if he was sick, he would make an update post to let friends know what was going on. And, there's so many thoughts when somebody dies. What could I have done better, And it's not like we left him to die alone. We were just so used to him not answering calls because he was very prone to not answering calls or texts because he was a very loner type of wolf person. But, when you think something's off, listen to the instinct that something is off. Because while I acknowledged that the instinct was there, I just thought, hey, maybe he doesn't have internet. He hasn't had a job for over a year because he has been so sick. Thankfully, the VA has been helping him, basically the Veterans Hospital, helping him get by, but, there's only so much I guess you can do, and it's just heartbreaking, especially like my dad's reaction. When the call came, I knew something was wrong because I've only seen my dad cry twice. He never cries immediately, like an outburst. And when he got that call and answered it, he just immediately choked up and burst into tears. And I've never seen my dad do that kind of crying. I've only ever seen him cry over his kids. I know this is like a sad video. That's why I put sugar, my little sugar cookie alpaca in the background to make it less sad. I'm not putting any music because that would kind of be weird to have upbeat music playing in the background on this. But just hold your loved ones a little tighter, guys, and, listen to your internal instincts because I feel like, they're there for a reason. And to ignore them, even if there's nothing I could have done, even if it was bound to happen or destined, it still, I guess would have made me... What the hell is that noise? There's always weird noises in the background when I'm recording. It's just birds fighting outside. But you just listen to yourself. Your body knows things, I think, that we sometimes don't realize. Since we're almost at the end of the video, I'll just leave you, like I said, with the message of hold your loved ones a little tighter, talk to them. Sometimes people need their space, but when something seems suspicious, check as soon as possible. Because I only live 30 minutes away from him. And I live closer to him than I do my parents. And if I had known that, he was sick before this. Like I said, he'd been sick quite some time, but I didn't know he'd recently been very sick. He didn't talk about it. I would have checked up on him. And it's just one of those hard things in life that's bound to happen, but it's hard to not think about the future of what happens when eventually you lose other loved ones that you're closer to, you know? But I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope you guys keep on drawing even in the hardest of times, and, you know, just have a good day.